They start off the season in Ireland against Northwestern. They lead by 11 points, 28-17 early third. They decide to go for an onside kick. Stupid. They don't get it. Stupid. Wildcats go down the field, score a touchdown. Bad. End up scoring another touchdown and then win the game. And so Nebraska has egg on its face. They led by 11 points early third and went for an onside kick. Here is Scott Frost.
We had a really good chance of winning the game, and I felt like maybe we were the better team. And, you can't really foresee them scoring 14 straight and us sputtering after we'd played well to start the second half on offense. So, again, those are excuses. If I had it over, I wouldn't make the call.
If I had it over, I wouldn't make the call. Now, I appreciate that honesty from Scott Frost, but Scott Frost just undermined his own decision in that statement. I thought we were the better team. If you were the better team and you're up 11, then you kick that away and you play defense because you're the better team and you think you can hold on to an 11-point lead. If you're not the better team, you're scared that you can't hold on to an 11-point lead, so you got to keep collecting possessions and points. So it's a botched bit of logic and a botched bit of coaching, and Scott Frost has had a lot of that. The Huskers have been undermined by poor special teams his entire tenure there and a lot of one-possession losses, which constantly comes down to coaching. If you have the talent to consistently be in games, but you consistently lose those games, it's coaching. And here's the bit at Nebraska, because there's been a lot of conversation about why can't Nebraska get good again? What happened? And this is a big macro discussion here. Because the Huskers in the 70s, 80s, and 90s were what Ohio State is now, what Alabama is now. And that is, for 30 years, they are winning national championships, churning out Heisman Trophy winners, filling that stadium every Saturday, and one of the brands of college football. And today, Nebraska might be the 30th, 40th most significant brand in college football. I mean, it's an old brand, but it doesn't matter anymore. Nobody goes, we need Nebraska on TV. So what happened? As anything that's this dramatic, it's a lot of different things. It can't be one thing. Because passion in Nebraska is still sky high. I've gone to a couple of games in Lincoln. It is an amazing Saturday. The intensity, the passion, the state shuts down on Saturdays for these games. That still resides there. But there's a couple of things that have factored into why Nebraska's been so down for so long. Number one, they got arrogant. After Tom Osborne retires, they thought they were better than 9 and 10 win seasons from Frank Solich and Bo Pelini. And they weren't. They weren't better than that. Nebraska fans didn't deserve more than that. The program wasn't supposed to be better than that. I mean, Frank Solich was going 10-2, and it was, we're not winning national championship games, so he's a bum. That's the first part. The arrogance of we're better than 9 or 10 wins. Number two, the swinging dramatically between styles. What are we? Who are we? Remember, they go from Frank Solich, who is basically Tom Osborne light, to Bill Callahan in a West Coast offense. We're going to do quarterbacks, spread the field, wide receivers. I mean, come on. You think Nebraska should be an air raid attack? Give me a break. It's dramatically swing between all these different concepts. The other thing is college football changed. College football used to be the power of your program, A, money, B, influence, happens based on how many tickets you're selling. That's your revenue. The revenue's not coming from television in 1974. The revenue is coming from, we have 90,000 people in the stands every single Saturday. That's our money. Well, today, your gate, your receipts mean nothing. I mean, the SEC, like Alabama doesn't have to sell a ticket before they make $60 million from the SEC television contracts. So the competitive advantage Nebraska used to have is gone because now everybody's got tons of money from television. It doesn't matter how many tickets you sell. And I think the other thing is, from a recruiting standpoint, there's never going to be a bunch of 5 stars at Nebraska, in the state of Nebraska. So what you have to do is basically what Wisconsin does. Recruit the hell out of the big boys, the maulers, the farm boys in your state, build up a huge offensive line, and just be a great offensive line and defensive line school. And then you get 3 skill position guys from a couple of other states, and you try to win that way. Wisconsin's done this amazingly. Big offensive line, the big farm boys all over the roster, and then Jonathan Taylor or Ron Dane or whoever the running back Melvin Gordon is to run for 1,800 yards. And that's what Nebraska really should do. But they've swung dramatically and have kept missing. And then on top of it, if you are Nebraska and you don't have a bunch of 5-star, even offensive linemen in your state, which might not happen every single year, you got to go to Iowa, or you got to go to Pennsylvania, or you got to go to Ohio or Wisconsin, and you got to get those kids. And guess whose teams are good and out recruiting you? Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan and Wisconsin, to a lesser degree, Iowa, but you're getting killed there. And then you leave the conference that you've always been known for, the Big 8 or the Big 12, and you go to the Big 10, and now you don't play games in Texas anymore, and you used to get kids out of Texas. Now you don't play there anymore. And so going to the Big 10 has hurt you. And recruiting-wise, they're average. They're in the 40s every year. I mean, Nebraska's recruiting class is in the 40s. They're not getting kids. Because once it starts going, and you got to get kids to Lincoln, Nebraska, they ain't going to start just suddenly showing up. Once you've eroded that recruiting base, it's really hard to get that back because now everybody else is in your stuff, in your territory. So all of those things have happened, and now the Scott Frost thing. Scott Frost isn't a very good coach. He's probably better than 3-6 every year or 3-5 of the conference, but he's not a great coach. We can see this. He's making the same mistakes over and over again and just went for an onside kick up 11 in the third quarter when he said, we're the better football team. He looked the part. He sounds the part. He's loyal to Nebraska. He's a Lincoln kid. He's royalty for the Huskers. He sounds the part, looks the part. This should be our guy. Unfortunately, and this is just dumb, bad luck for Nebraska, the guy that should be your coach isn't a very good coach. That's just the unfortunate reality. If Nick Saban bled Husker football, and Nick Saban was like, the only job I want is to be the Huskers football coach, Nebraska would be better. They'd find ways to be better in recruiting and be better on Saturdays. But he's just not. And he doesn't have to be Nick Saban. But, I mean, you know, he's probably the 11th or 12th best coach in the conference. I mean, you know, you got all this other stuff that works against Nebraska, and then you got a guy that sounds the part, looks the part, is loyal. You want him to be good, but he's just not a very good coach. I mean, he had one great season at UCF. Everything came together. If and when he gets fired at Nebraska, let's just say it's this year, and let's say next year he gets another job. Let's say he gets the K-State job. Would you assume K-State would suddenly be good under Scott Frost? The answer is no. No. He wouldn't be anything better than they've had. So all of those things have led to one of the great brands of college football just not being good anymore. And I don't think it's going to change. It can change at USC because USC is glamorous and there's tons of talent in California. It can change at Miami because Miami is glamorous to a certain degree, but there's tons of talent in South Florida. It can change at those places. Can it change in Lincoln? Again, I've been to Lincoln. You get on that campus, you get in that stadium, you're like, this is freaking awesome. But you got to get into that campus in that stadium, and you got to give them something that seems to matter. And right now, when's the last time Nebraska football mattered? What they played in the title game Was that one of the Miami wins? Was that the 01 championship? I mean,
That was when I was in high school. That 01 might be right.
I think Scott Frost was on that team, right? He was the quarterback on that squad that really shouldn't have played for the national championship, but they blew out Colorado, I think, or something like that. And then they just got absolutely whitewashed by Miami or something. But, I mean, it's been 20-some-odd years since they could hang their hat on
lost
something.
in the Rose Bowl in 2001.
To that unbelievable, perhaps the most talented Miami team ever.
Right, that was a Frank Solich team.
Perhaps the most talented college football team ever. But, yeah, so it's been 21 years since there's been anything significant. But you know what? Like, 10-2 should have been good enough. 9-3 under Bo Pelini should have been good enough because now you kill for that. And once it starts going, it really goes.